Hey, and that's Mark Lindsay singing Hungry. You know, it's a live cut from a CD called The Sensational 60 Show. And as a matter of fact, we have a Sensational 60 Show coming to Raleigh Field August 3rd. On there will be Gary Lewis, Tommy James, the Turtles, Andy Kim, Mitch Ryder, and Mark Lindsay. And as a matter of fact, Mark's on our phone right now. Mark.
Hey, dude.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. What a wild summer, huh?
Well, you know, we've got a great show coming August 3rd, and a Sensational 60 show. Now, how long have you been touring with this?
Oh, probably 2 or 3 years. It's a great package, great bunch of folks, and just some great music. That was a wonderful era in history, the 60s, and the music just never seems to die. So we're going to keep it alive.
Now, we just played Hungry. I'm sure that's one of the songs that you'll do for us, right? There at the show?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to sing every hit record that Paul Green and the Raiders ever had, and so we'll be doing Hungry and Kicks and Good Thing, maybe Him or Me, Just Like Me, Steppin' Out.
Wow.
The list goes on.
Wow.
The list goes on.
Well, let's go back a little bit now, Mark. The Raiders, I think, was from 1961 to 75. For you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Actually, the group we formed a group called the Downbeats that in like '59 that became the Raiders in '61. So and I left the group right after we had our biggest record ever, and the last hit was Indian Reservation.
Wow.
And, I'd been doing it since I was a little kid, so I thought, well, it's time to retire. Little did I know that after I hung up my rock and roll shoes for about 10 years, I'd get itchy again.
How important was the TV series Where the Action Is to you, to the group?
It was. I can't say it was tantamount to our success, but it sure added a great deal. It was very much like a precursor to MTV.
Right.
Like nowadays, it's really hard to launch a new group or a new record without on television exposure. And here we were. We found ourselves on television 5 days a week on a show that featured rock and roll and girls in bikinis, and the formula worked.
Well, as a matter of fact, I watched that show. I thought it was a great show. I was big fans of Paul Revere and the Raiders. But how did that show work, though? I mean, each show you were in a different city. It was 5 days a week. I mean, what kind of time limit? I mean, did you guys go out on the road for 2 months and do all these shows, or how was that put together?
It basically, we'd come into town or whatever location we were on, they were shooting at, because we were usually touring, but we'd come in and we'd shoot a week or maybe 2 weeks, and we'd shoot, several shows a day, obviously, and we'd probably shoot maybe a month's worth in a session, and then take off again. So
wow.
I remember one year when Action was on, we played we were on the road like 231 days, I think.
Wow.
And so that didn't give. Add to that, filming some action segments and them recording stuff in the studio, and that doesn't leave much time for sleeping, does it?
And you really had a great cast besides yourselves too. Keith Allison, I think Tina Mason, was that her name? And
she was and Steve Alamo.
Right.
And plus they had some of the hottest dancers.
That's right.
If you some of the fans of that show, if you watch some of the movies of that era, like Gidget or Gidget Goes Hawaiian or Ride the Wild Surf, or any of the movies that were made during the early '60s, surf music or beach party bingo or whatever, beach blanket bingo.
Right.
But you'll see a lot of the same dancers that were on Action in some of the dance shots, and that's kind of how they cast the dancers. They just went around and had a dance call and said, anybody with experience in movies?
Well, it was a good show.
Oh, it was a lot of fun, and we had, it was kind of like your hit parade in solid gold.
Right.
And, of course, whoever was in town or in Hollywood recording or coming through or playing anywhere around that Southern California area, I'd say that the majority of the shows were filmed from like San Diego to Malibu, beaches there.
Right.
But we did go on location several places, and whoever was in town, we would have them drop by and shoot, or we'd go there. And so, the format basically we try to have a big guest who was on the top 10, and then the Raiders usually would play a song from the top 10, even if it wasn't ours.
Right. Right.
If we were lucky, we got to play one of ours if it was in the top 10 too.
It worked though.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was, I think when there's a line in one of the Beach Boys songs, if everybody had an ocean across the USA, and for the people in Kansas and Idaho and Ohio, it was really cool. Here you got to tune into the beach every day.
Right. Now, was there ever any plans to do a Paul Revere in the movie of Paul Revere and the Raiders?
There were a couple of some talk about it. It just never came to fruition. We were always so busy
right.
on the road that we never could take time out to stop for the month or so it would take to shoot a movie. Although there were a couple of plans submitted, and one of the scripts ended up going. It was kind of about this bunch of guys that traveled around and stuff, and somebody over at Columbia Pictures said, "This is a great idea," and put together a group called the Monkees.
Oh my!
Based on the Raiders script.
Oh wow!
So I guess it was a format that worked more than once.
Yes, and another major thing back then, and even for me, I think it was mostly girls that read these, but I have to admit, I read these magazines. 16, the Tiger Beat. Now, they had so many things in those magazines about, when the pillow that Mark slept on, and cuts of your, ponytail. Right. Now, you win that. Now, Mark, be honest. Did this stuff really happen?
Well, I remember we filmed a segment of the show Before the Action Is on a boat, I think, in the marina, and this was the big day they were going to cut my ponytail, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I never said I would cut it off, and so they snipped about 4 or 5 hairs or something. But I guess I gave it to my manager, who apparently really sent it to the person that won. I have no idea what she did with it. But
well, I would imagine those magazines were very important, though.
They were teen magazines. It was again kind of like in the days before television became huge.
Right.
Movies were the big format for stars, and the screen magazines. I can't remember. I can't think of the names, but I'm sure Hollywood Fabulous or
right.
And they'd write articles about the stars and build them up, and that was how people, if you liked Clark Gable or James Dean,
right.
or whoever it was, I'm trying to think of some girls here. How about Natalie Wood?
There you go.
America's Sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
You would read the Screen Gossip magazine.
Sure.
So that was kind of like a spin-off of that, and you got to hear behind the scenes, get to see behind the scenes photos with your fave raves.
Right.
And most of the interviews that I gave, were actual interviews. But I did read a few articles in some magazines where I guess either the people couldn't get to me or
right.
or just decided to write the article themselves.
Right.
I read some amazing things. One of them was about how the story about how I wrote Arizona and the girl that inspired it and so on and so forth, which was a great story, except I didn't write Arizona. It was written by a guy named Kenny Young. So it was kind of amusing sometimes to read about my exploits, both real and imagined.
Well, I want to remind everyone that on August 3rd, Mark, along with Gary Lewis and Tommy James and the Turtles and Mitch Ryder and more, they're going to be over at Raleigh Field, and they're going to be doing a great concert that night, August 3rd. That's a Saturday. And
want to kick out the jam.
And you can, your fans can find out all about your tour information by going to where?
Oh, going to the marklindsay.com.
Right, and that's a great website. Who put that together for you?
Actually, my wife put that together. She's quite...
Hey, done very well, very well.
Tell her, I'll pass that along.
There's some, just to let people know, there's some great photos on there.
Oh yeah, there's some old photos that she's I would call her a forensic researchist.
Right.
Or archivist.
Mm-hmm.
Always finding old photos that haven't been published, and I don't know, she's really good at getting unique things and putting the stories together, and I think it's an interesting. If I didn't know me, I would like to look it up and find out what I did.
Well, there's all kinds of information that not only gives a history of you, but the history of the group, the Raiders,
right.
Plus where you're touring at, plus some groovy stuff to get. There's some CDs that you can't find really at stores. At certain stores you can, but you can get them here online, and plus photos and all kinds of memorabilia, and there's all kinds of stuff on this thing. It's great.
Just a little quickie here. We were in Morocco, and in Casablanca on a cruise last year, and we saw the sign that said Rick's Cafe, and if anybody that's seen the movie Casablanca knows Rick's
Sure,
Cafe, right? So
sure.
We said, gee, we have to go over it, even though it was never real, but here in the Hyatt and in Casablanca were all these faded movie posters about Rick's Cafe.
Right.
Casablanca. So as we were leaving, Deb says, "Well, wouldn't it have been fun if you could have actually played Rick's Cafe?" And so that started the idea, and we came back and I got together with a couple friends of mine, and it was as if it were 1940 or 41, and we were kind of like, me and my friend were traveling through Europe trying to get back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar story, isn't it?
Yes.
And we stayed, we dropped in and played live at Rick's Cafe one night, and the recording is actually, we did it live, and I swear, you can put it on and close your eyes, you can hear the piano over here, and the piano bass over here, and the drums with brushes over here, and I'm standing right in the middle, and it's
what a good idea.
It sounds like and of course we picked songs, all love songs that were written before 42, like As Time Goes By.
Right.
And Embraceable You, The Way You Look Tonight.
Sounds great, and this is a new CD it's available now.
Yeah, and you can get that on the website also. It's a lot of fun. I've never done anything quite like that, and that doesn't mean I'm hanging up my rock and roll shoes.
Right.
But even when I was with the Raiders, I did albums with myself that were more of a ballad nature.
Mm-hmm.
So we mix it up.
Well, that sounds great.
For those who want to check the website, remember it's like Lindsay. Lindsay.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
It really is a great site, and Deb did a very good job. And as a matter of fact, Mark, I think in a couple of days you have an anniversary.
Oh, yes. I believe we've been married a lucky 13 years.
Wow. And you both live in Hawaii now, right?
Yeah, we have a place in Hawaii and a place in upstate New York.
Wow.
And we're right now, as I'm speaking with you, I'm looking over the blue Pacific, so it's got to be Hawaii. That's how I can tell. If I'm looking at the Hudson River, then I know we're in New York. If I'm looking at the Pacific, I know we're in Hawaii.
Well, Mark, I got to tell you, 2 or 3 years ago, while I was at a radio station in St. Louis, Missouri, KTRS, I did an interview with you, and during the interview at that time, you were taking a bath. I remember that.
Oh, I remember this.
I think an entire interview you were doing, you were taking a bath.
I I remember this because you busted me. You said, are you in the tub?
Yes, right. and also years before that, we used to do a bunch of stuff with a disc jockey there in St. Louis, Missouri, named Johnny Rabbit.
Sure.
And Johnny Rabbit, I think, emceed some of your shows there, and was a major fan of yours.
Yeah, we used to drop by and whenever we were in town, and he was one of those personalities.
A lot of people in Sacramento won't know him. He moved out to L.A. some time ago, and unfortunately he passed away a few years ago, emphysema. But he was a great disc jockey and became Billboard #1 disc jockey of the year back in the 60s, and great big fan of the Raiders. But
well, it was that was an era when radio personalities were as big as the stars.
Oh, sure.
Decay and
yeah. It was amazing those years. People would listen to the radio, no matter what city. Every city had the big disc jockeys. You would listen to the radio to hear the disc jockeys.
Right. And then he would play your favorite songs. I remember being 14 years old and listening to a station. It was actually KFXC out of Nampa, but a guy named By Taylor, who unfortunately is no longer with us either. He had, it was in Idaho. The towns are kind of spread out, and he would do record hops and stuff. And I guess he was driving back from one real late one night, and fell asleep, went into the river. But I used to, fall asleep with my head on the radio, and it was for those. But in the pre-television era, radio was the theater of the mind.
Sure.
And you just, I I'd listen to Little Richard doing "Rip It Up" and Long Tall Sally and stuff. But I could see him pounding the piano and jumping up and down and sweating, and it was like being there. Sure.
It's a whole people today they can't really understand what we're talking about. That didn't grow up in our years, but it was great.
Well, you see, now the graphics are great. You can see it on television.
Right.
Or, a movie clip or whatever, or your MP3 clip or on your computer.
Right.
And it's all there, but you can't see anything more than is there. And, with listening to the radio, your imagination it really depended on how good your imagination was. You could
sure.
You could be in any setting, anywhere, and it was fun. A lot of fun.
Well, Mark, a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure at the Riviera Hotel in Vegas. I got to see the Sensational 60 show, and of course, you were there. I think Gary Lewis, Billy J. Kramer, Mitch Ryder, and I've got to say, your voice is better than ever. You do a heck of a show.
Well, rock and roll is pretty high energy, and so I run like 5 miles every other day or so, just to stay in shape so I can do this. It's I've always liked music, and I can't imagine myself just standing there and singing, unless of course it's a love song.
Right. But you did a great show, and the voice is just is amazing. It's better than I think it ever was.
I'm very lucky. I still sound like I'm 16 years old, I guess, and the voice just gets stronger, which is great.
Right.
I'm not complaining.
Well, listen, I want to remind everyone, August 3rd, over at Raleigh Field, with Mark and Tommy, James and Gary Lewis and Andy Kim, the Turtles, Mitch Ryder, and on. It's going to be a great night. I hope everybody comes out there to see you guys. And Mark, hey, I want to thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And we're talking about the records, but there's nothing like hearing rock and roll live.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it.
Raleigh Field on the 3rd.
And tell Deb, happy anniversary.
I sure will. It is the 3rd, isn't it?
The concert August 3rd.
Yes.
August 3rd. There you go. It's a Saturday, August 3rd. And we'll be seeing you. And matter of fact, talking about live, we're going to play a cut Indian Reservation, you singing Indian Reservation live at a Sensational 60 show.
And they'll do a little precursor. They get to hear it now, and then they can see it live in a couple of,
That's right. Mark, I hope we talk to you again soon. You take care, and let's hear Indian Reservation. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you much.